Henners.
Here.
Mr. Rager.
Here.
Mrs. Hartley.
Here. All right, and if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We need an approval of the agenda for our meeting tonight. So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Mrs. Henners.
Yes.
Mr. Rager.
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley.
Yes.
Mrs. Mast.
Yes, thank you. Did you want to do your audience participation for the rehire?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we have two tonight. One is specific for, as required by Ohio Revised Code, for staff intending to rehire after they've retired. We have to have a public session. This was posted in the Sandusky Register paper a few weeks ago, and so those are the two teachers and a bus driver that retired at the end of this school year and are seeking reemployment to start next school year.
And then, anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to bring before the board this evening? Okay, then we'll move on.
So for reports for the building or department, today we have outgoing president, Amy Springer, presenting about athletic boosters. So, Amy, you are up.
Okay, so what I did is I put together, we just had our booster budget meeting, and so with that, in March, we reached out to all the coaches, we send out a letter, and I actually follow up with text messages to make sure that they are aware that, you know, if you want to put in for equipment or uniforms, to let us know. So this is, if you don't see a sports team on here, it's because they either have their own equipment and they're good to go for the rest of the year. So first thing is we approved girls basketball. They're getting Nike red varsity uniforms, and there's 15 away. So look at the jersey and the shorts for that. I put down 1,800. Girls soccer Nike warm-ups. There are 28 of them. Those we order really early because they won't probably come in until end of September. Baseball, they requested new home and away jerseys at approximately 2,000. Wrestling, they're going to be getting new Nike sublimated singlets, 25 of them. He's hoping to have a good turnout this year of wrestlers for 22-25. Cheer, our new cheer advisor is in need of 3 more uniforms for, I believe, freshmen and JV at 700, and then the paper supply comes from Sam Bay for signage, which is around 200. And then boys and girls tennis, they usually share all their equipment, so they just requested for 2 ball hoppers. We fitted tennis last year with all new warm-up suits, all new jerseys, so they're pretty good for this next year. So you can see the total about $9,754. That's just for cloth. Oh, I'm sorry, the ball hoppers, I meant to put that down as equipment. But maintenance, our freezer died during track season, so we have 2 freezers. We're gonna order another one at 600. We do 360 bags, Barnes hardwood mulch at 1,800. And we're gonna do some painting at the stadium, approximately around 3,000. We're going to paint the Huron Memorial sign red letters. We're going to paint the old ticket booth, which used to be our old, it's where we keep all the equipment. When you make that turn, it's just looking a little dingy. So we're gonna get that with a nice gray and then paint all those letters on both sides white. You don't realize how big that building is. We walked around it with the painter and it's pretty big. So that's gonna look really nice when you make that turn. What else here? And then, Matthew Ayers requested some new conference banners because we're gonna be changing our conference here soon. So we're gonna need that. So he put in approximately 1,500. So he's gonna go ahead and order those. So our total is about $6,900 there. So at the bottom, what we did is we budgeted, the first number is what we budgeted, the second number is what we did this past year. So for 50/50, we budgeted $2,000 again, and we did 21-27. Concession stand, we budgeted 20,000 again, and we did 25,250.47. Membership drive, which was last year, if you recall, that was the first year we didn't send kids door to door. It did not hurt us. I was really thankful to our community for that. We budgeted again 15,000 like we did last year, and we made 18,815.12. And then sports programs, we did the same again. We did 6,000 budgeted, and then we did 59,29.12 for last year. The bingo, we have poll tickets. We're not allowed to call it lottery anymore. It's called bingo for the state of Ohio. So those are poll tickets, and we have the poll tickets at the Fish House, at Sandbar, at Main Street, Jim's Pizza Box, and now we have the Vikings Den. So that's down at the lagoons. That's just seasonal. That's just for summer, but it's doing really, really well. So that's great. So we see we budgeted 35,000. As of right now, our lottery, I can't say lottery, our, not used to it, our bingo, our end of the year, beginning of the year is October 1st. So Cheryl said we'll probably be around 42 to 43,000 by that time. So that's good. Summer's always does really well at these different places. So we're really lucky to add Vikings Den to our, our list of those. So stadium advertising, it does seem a little low. That is like every 3 years. So we budgeted 5,000 for this year. Last year we did 6,300, 66.43. Next year will be the year we'll have about 15 up for renewal, and those are at 800 apiece for the stadium signs that go along the fence. So we'll have the budget more for next year for that. So you can see our booster fund as of right now, our cash flow is 40,256.21. Our bingo right now is at 19,456, totaling just under 60,000 at 59,712.21, which to me I think is really good because this is our end of the year. Our first, July 1st is the start of our boosters with our membership drive coming up. That'll be on July 26th. And then that cleanup day as well as that day. Our turf loan. This is kind of exciting for me because we've really worked hard on getting this down. Currently we only owe $75,000. Next month, the July payment from Mucci will be $25,000, will get us down to 50. And then the next payment from Mucci won't be till January 2026. So our plan is to put another $25,000 down on the principal in November. We could have done that now, but we always feel like we want to make sure there's no emergencies. Like you can be out something could, we could have a tornado and something could happen. And so we just felt like with a new board coming in, we thought, you know what, let's just be conservative and let's wait till November and see how things go. So with that, the last two payments from Mucci will go strictly to the boosters with 50,000 since we put that big deposit down at the beginning of the turf. So we're starting year 5 and it's insured for 8 years. And I was just out there with Mucci Farms and it looks really good. I mean, the coloring, everything looks really good still. So that's, you get what you pay for, so I'm happy that it's turning out really well. Our new board, it will be continuing with John Ruff as president. Samantha Diffenbacher will stay on as VP. The new treasurer is Michelle Hall. Michelle, I believe, has a freshman coming in, son, and Kurt Hall was a past assistant football coach back in the day, and she's wonderful. Her family owns Toughman Equipment, so she does all the payroll for her family's business, so I think she'll do, Cheryl and they've been working together for a while now, and she's great. So I'm so happy that she's gonna be our treasurer. Our members at large is Sue Dickerson, Chris Foster, Beth Williams, Steve Slushman, Whitney Fantozzi, and Christy Sass. Whitney Fantozzi's been our concession stand liaison for several years, so she really knows the ins and outs of that. So as far as the leadership there in the concession, I have Whitney and Christy Sass kind of heading up the window side of it, and then Beth Williams and Samantha Diffenbacher will kind of head up the food side of it. So it's gonna be like a team effort to get that organized. Back in May, we did a scholarship banquet. We gave out 21 student athletes, each earned $500 scholarship. I listed all the names: Allie Hartung, Austin Bruno, Dominic Muratori, Paul Maloney, Jack Murray, Ben Davis, Megan Harkerode, Audrey Duziak, Ella Ransom, Mason Shinley, Nicholas Rager, TJ Murray, Jason Lensick, Kendall Towns, Allison Witherow, Brooke Diffenbacher, Riley Deans, Carter Slushman, Joseph Wood, Adeline Feiga, and Gabriella Brooker. Wonderful group of kids. It was a wonderful scholarship banquet. I always enjoy that. That's always a fun way to end the school year with a scholarship. And the last thing, as far as I was going to say, was Mucci Farms had their employee appreciation just recently on June 13th at the stadium. Thank God it wasn't super hot like today. So they hosted 230 employees. They're a wonderful company. We're so lucky to have them here in Huron. So lucky. They hosted a huge soccer tournament in uniforms, catered lunch by Blue Ribbon Catering, tons of prizes. It was neat. If you lived around here, you'd hear a lot of things in Spanish and then in English. So that was really cool. They love it at the stadium. First thing they said, the Canadians came in, they said, well, what is the contract? How long is the contract here? And I said, well, you're okay, you got like 3 years. And she goes, oh, great. So that was kind of neat. So anyway, but the last thing I wanted to say was to thank you guys, thank you board, administration for your support through the years. It has been 15 years, it's been awesome. It's been great. I've only had a couple, I would say probably 2 tough times or moments that I can think of. But I've worked, I was just sitting here writing this down because I had to write it down, so but I worked with 3 different principals: John Ruff, Scott Matheny, and Tim Lamb. Athletic directors: Tony Manafo, Monica Asher, Steve Kamala, Matthew Ayers. Superintendents: Fred Fox, Dennis Muratori. Interims: John Ruff and Julie McDonald. And current superintendent, of course, Dr. James Tapman. So I wanted to say a shout out to the past board members, Donna Green and Scott Slocum and Paul Ward, and of course the late John Jones. I miss him. We all miss him. To me, here in City Schools is extremely special. If people are listening or watching online, to me, like no matter what each day brings, it's a group effort to have a strong community and be successful. It really is. It takes a group effort. Through the years, schools have copied verbatim our membership flyer. They called to ask us, how do we get volunteers? How did you get that sizable loan? It's been pretty great. So anyway, it takes a commitment, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of love and support from our teachers, our coaches, our administration, and a strong school board. Loyal and hardworking parents and volunteers. It all makes it happen, So thanks for letting me stand here tonight and for giving me the trust in all the projects I've been a part of. I will say it comes full circle because the very first project was the tiger painted on the wall. And then the last project was the scoreboards. So I sat there the one day during the basketball game and I'm like, wow, that's kind of neat that they're right next to each other. But I laughed because the day before they started the tire, Don Wood comes up to me and he goes, it better not look like that sleepy polar bear. And I said, what? So then that night I was up at 3 in the morning and I went, oh my God, what if it looks like a sleepy polar bear? Like I was so nervous. And anyway, I told him the next day, I'm like, he made me so nervous for this project. So I just laughed because that was the first one that I was like, oh my gosh, please don't screw up, But anyway, it's been a great time and I'm still going to be around. You're still going to see me, but thank you guys. I don't know if you have any questions or anything, but.
I don't have a question, but I have something that the board would like to give you in appreciation.
Oh, jeez. Is that a green?
It is.
But it was hospital bag. Is that terrible? I know what that is. I'm gonna get a shop bag.
This is just a very, very, very small token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much
for everything you have done and how you have changed the boosters.
Thank you.
And
yeah, it's going to be a good.
We're very grateful.
And if it's if there's a fire, I'll be there to so cool
Oh,
things ever, but.
But thank you.
Yeah, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely, thank you guys.
Julie?
So, a little ways down on the agenda, you'll see we're asking for approval for the Magic School AI. And so I just want to take a few minutes and explain what that entails and what that contract is all about. So this year, a couple of us really got into AI from the standpoint of what impact can this have on education as it is coming out more and more. People are doing different things with it. What does it look like? And then what's the role of it in our district? So and a couple different professional development opportunities, Magic School AI kept coming up. And so I had the opportunity to go to Port Clinton, it was November-ish, and sit in on their rollout of it to their staff, with their staff. So not knowing what it was about, sitting elbow to elbow with them. And this was their staff's first opportunity with it as well, to see, what the tools we could get would be available for staff and then later on students. So after that, I came back and talked to James and Mike and said, can we at least do a pilot with volunteers, knowing that several of our staff members were already using it under a free trial basis, which is a whole other conversation. But because when I contacted the lady, she was like, oh, what's your email address? And she's like, oh, you have accounts. And I was like, I don't want to know that. Okay. So we signed up for a pilot and we offered it to the tech committee and then anybody who was willing. And so we did some kind of arm twisting, because who says yes to a pilot in the middle of the year? But we said, what we need to know is like how you can use it in your everyday life to make things easier for you, less time consuming, working smarter, not harder, and then also impacting your instruction. So those are the two goals, if you will, of the pilot. So the teachers, about once a month, I would go back and say, okay, how have you used it to address these two goals? And so they came up with some really neat ideas and ways to use it that I guess when we started, we hadn't really thought through or thought about. Like, we just jumped in, let's get our hands dirty with this and whatnot. So if you think in terms of when you log into a platform, what the first thing Magic AI does as a user asks you what you like and what you're looking for. So you build a dashboard of your favorites. So I kind of had to chuckle. What my favorites started as and what they ended as at the end of the pilot were different, because there's things like writing letters of recommendations. There's quote of the day that you can use for students. There are song creators. So you put in a standard, I need 5th grade science standards for Ohio, and it shoots out a song on whatever you've just asked it to do. So things like that. So teachers could put in, I'm having a hard time with this behavior. What are some interventions I can use for a 2nd grade student? I'm trying to think what else. There's a whole host of things, and they're constantly adding tools to this. So the backdoor side of it is OpenAI, but what Magic School AI does is it puts bumpers on for use of AI for both the students and the teachers. Or excuse me, I said it backwards, the teachers and the students. So what teachers can do is have the kids log in and they can set up different things that the kids can do given only certain parameters. And also one of the tools I had to chuckle is creating assignments that are AI resistant. So I thought that was kind of funny. There's a tool for that in the AI tools. So another thing that could be beneficial to the student, and we did not mess around with this in the pilot because I didn't want to go that far and then just be like, yeah, that's not us. But we can upload our handbooks and board policies and documents, and it'll use, I had to write this down because we keep calling it RAG, but it's the Retrieval Augmentation Generation, where AI uses large data sets, but they don't have parameters on it until you put them on there. So if we upload our documents and upload our things, it uses that as the context for the product. So again, just say we have a behavior, we need to discipline a student, we need to write a parent letter. It knows what our handbook says, it knows these different things, and it can make suggestions on what to put in that letter, kind of things. So we didn't get that far into it, we didn't get that deep yet, but it's a step forward in our AI usage, and teaching kids how to better use AI. There's some great ways in which to do it. There are also other products, and why we liked this one is we felt the user interface seemed easier, seemed more intuitive. You could build that dashboard, so James's dashboard looks different than mine, looks different from Mike because of what tools we're using in the classroom. I like this versus a membership to Teacher Pay Teacher, which is kind of like the wild, wild west of instructional things. I'm not a fan of Teacher Pay Teacher. I say that ad nauseum to our staff and they kind of chuckle, but yeah.
What is it called?
Teacher Pay Teacher. It's an Etsy for teachers, if you will. Teachers create stuff and put it out there, and teachers can buy it from each other. But I think the research on it is a little rough for me personally. It's a little rough to say like that's not good. So, and this kind of, like I said, puts that bumper system. It's not fail-safe. It's not perfect. It's not whatever. But as we tiptoe in, we have that constant conversation going of, where do we start? We got to start somewhere. It's not going to be where we end up. The contract also will provide for some PD for the teachers to get going. So when I look back at the end of the pilot and how many people were still using it, each month it increased. And once they got a little bit into it, they're like, oh, okay, here are all the things that I can do. I did have a teacher say it did not help her become more efficient because she started creating a lot of things that she otherwise would not have created. So I didn't buy her anything, but it got her better quality in the more things that she made. I thought, well, okay, that's honest and fair. You go down a rabbit hole and you start having fun. I get it. So, yes, asking for recommendations on that. And then I have a little bit of good news too. Our preliminary report cards have come back, and I say preliminary because we are still cleaning up data, which we will do through late summer. Kathy Monroe has been wonderful, saying here's what I need you to look at, here's what doesn't seem right. So met with the principals last week to already clean some stuff up and shake some things out. But as a good guess, and even if it's in red on the secure data center, the district most likely will end up at a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Woodlands is up to a 4.5 right now. It probably will not hit the 5, but we also are still working on the early literacy component because we still have 10 kids testing this week for the summer test. Okay. So right now that component itself is at a 3. We think we can get it up, but it won't take the overall score of that building up much more. McCormick, super proud, they're up to a 4. In the high school, Tim's kind of gnashing his molars. He's at a 4.5 right now. Couple things. We are now responsible for the college career workforce and military readiness component. So it's always been just kind of hanging out there. Here's what it shows, whatever. So we're at 83 out of 100. We had a perfect 100 kids in this last class. 83 met that indicator. He needs an 85 to get a 5, which would put him back up at the 5 stars. So Kathy has been in contact with different service providers that would have been responsible for that for students out of our district that still count for our district. So as you know, with it being June, people are on vacation. So she gives me an update. I think she gave me 3 updates today, like just tracking down kids. So last week we were at 79. So it is still possible, and Tim was doing a lot of pacing as we were like, okay, now what about this one and what about that one? So it could be close, and then it'll also be close when the data drops out for data we're not responsible for. So for Brian, he doesn't have 2 reports that happen, and Kathy can't even report them until August. So that's why they put this preliminary tag on it. But all said and done, our self-reporting document with the region, we're still leading in quite a few areas, and I'm just super proud and excited because I know how hard our staff works. And I know it's not the only thing we do here, but in my department, in my little wheelhouse, just super proud because we're getting it done.
So I just have a quick question about Magic. I want to
Magic
call it Magic
AI.
School Bus.
I know, we all have, yeah. I kind of short it to Magic AI, just yeah.
I guess my question is, we don't have a policy for AI. Do you implement something like this before you even have a policy for AI?
Can we talk about it?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a draft policy. So, when the tech committee met last week, we had two goals. One was to work through the draft AI policy that Ohio School Boards shared, through James. We hacked it up pretty good. Their version, the committee felt, was very punitive and not as, a growth opportunity in teaching students and staff. So, that is back with James with all our red and green, suggestions. And so that work, had, two teachers involved, a few administrators, the IT department, and an intern myself. And we use different resources too. We just didn't go back to OSBA, and we, to be honest with you, didn't even stick in Ohio because we felt like some of the other states and what they were doing, we liked better. So, that will be forthcoming here pretty soon. So, the other thing I failed to mention is, the state's work with Magic School AI, the consortium work. So the price in the contract is reflected across, the state's buying power. So the state was leaning towards that, and so we like that as well, because quite frankly, it fits with all the other stuff that we're doing too. So, do we have a timeline on the policy?
I still need to review it and then send it over to Stacy to give input.
Yeah.
So it could be a first read in July and then second in action in
Is
August.
there a date by which the cost for this we have to approve it by a certain date to get this $49.5 price, or is it?
It was statewide pricing, I don't believe so, but,
Okay.
they check on us, the vendor checks on us every week, and we politely say it has to be board approved before
Yeah.
we sign it,
Okay,
so.
okay. But I just feel like if we're going to implement this kind of program that's AI, I personally would like to see us have an AI policy in place first before we sign on for something like this. And I just, if this is time sensitive, I don't know, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I would say it's on the agenda now after this last school year ended where staff piloted it, they shared with their peers, and so as they start thinking late July and into August about lesson planning and things like that for the new school year, having access to it, I think they find beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, the AI policy that OSBA provided, it's pretty vanilla because it's still so new that, you
Right.
know, how do you provide guidance on something that is still being figured out? And there's no legislative requirement for that policy. And I would also say that there's other policies that exist that help guide decisions with any tool that's used by teachers or students. So I think that's why I'm comfortable recommending it now, for those reasons.
So or James, I have a question on, how this fits with Senate Bill 29 and our obligations. As we're using apps and things like that,
Sure.
like how do those, is this in its current form compliant with Senate Bill? Because it seems like a pretty simple contract.
It is pretty simple.
Yeah.
So, so the other goal of the tech committee last week was the student data privacy agreements with all of the different entities that we work with. So Mike has to have this little sheet of paper says we're good, right? So, the other contract that we had last year and that we're redoing this year, because quite frankly, it saves my sanity, is, the Learn 21, the consortium, that's, where we get those, DPAs, student data privacy agreements. So Magic School AI is on the list.
Okay.
And so we have generated that, and so we have it. So that was the other goal of the committee last week. So I think we're up to 42 of those agreements. And then for those that we could not get agreements with for one reason or other, they are being added to our final forms COPA Senate Bill 29 list that asks for student permission, or parent permission for the students.
Okay, thank you.
I think, and I appreciate the question about policy so we can kind of figure out how it lines up. I think, because we're being pitched platforms at the college level to help with some, maybe say non-credit certificates. And some of them are just really open about using AI AI for developing curriculum, and that concerns me honestly, because I feel like that's the magic of educators and all the training that they do and understanding the standards and child development and what's appropriate and what the student needs are. And I've seen some things go a little wonky and haywire with curriculum and relying on that. And I understand certainly its presence in the workforce, I see it. I also see some of the studies coming out about like the brain MRIs of people who are becoming more and more reliant on AI to do their creative work, and it's a little bit alarming there too. So just to say, I hope, it's a good tool. It's important to understand the tools and exercise all the tools that we have. I also want to, applaud the magic that is our educators and what they bring that, AI can't do. I think too of some of the concerns for privacy, if OpenAI is the background for that, to ensure that what is being fed into it is not then being, right, because now is that becoming part of an algorithm that is then being shared out other places, and just hearing some of the sounds for alarm with the data privacy on a broader scale with some of these platforms. But thank you for taking the time to explain all the things that it can do and the benefits.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And then the expectation is, as a board, you have approved all the core curriculum and intervention so that is our core, and then we preach that using that with fidelity. This is a tool to do things with, not replace that. Because if that's the case, I don't need to spend $150,000 on reading material.
Right, but I guess my question would be then, and I understand what you're saying, that this is just kind of a help tool, but then who's making sure that people aren't just going to magic
AI.
magic AI and doing all this? I mean, we have a lot of teachers, and I understand that, so how do you know the parameters, or what are the parameters that will be put on this with lesson plans and things like that? Because you mentioned something about writing letters of reference. I know that there's a lot of teachers here that have a standard letter. They, plunk and chunk, and being on HEF, we get the same letter over and over and over and over again. So I'm just wondering what the parameters are, so you're not having that creative part, or the reason we have teachers and we're paying teachers to use their creativity. How do you make sure that still happens?
So one of the features that is we have an admin dashboard. So just like I could see in the pilot who's using it, how much, what tools are they going to, I can look at that at any time. The principals can look at it, James can look at it, we can see that. I think you also see it in the teacher-based team meetings, right? So if, or even like an IST meeting, so the intervention meetings for students. So I think, there's potential to see it there, and if the over reliance on it versus not. What I hope comes to light is we drop all this other noise that people will go out and find other things, other places, and at least we're all centralized in like coming to this as a hub to say, okay, here's where we can generate ideas and do the things, right? So another tool in here is, a writing prompt for the morning work, morning about, whatever you want to call it. Give me one that's standardized versus, just like a third grade math standard versus this is what I feel is cute and nice, right? So those kind of things I think will help it along. As far as an over-reliance on it, so using the letter of recommendation, kid gives me a resume, I can upload it, put in the student's information and say, give me a 3-paragraph reference letter for the student who wants to go to the University of Cincinnati. It'll produce it, and then the teacher then has to go back. They just can't take it verbatim. The teacher then needs to go back and say, does it sound like me? Does it use the language I would use? Things like that. I've been asked to write reference letters, so I tested it out, and I kind of chuckled. I'm like, I don't sound like that. Thank you for making me sound very sorry. outside. So I had to like fix it up and make it sound like it was me. And teachers are gonna have to work through that, but they would do, similar things with teacher pay teacher, not standard based, looks very cute, whatever, or, other Etsy downloads or other places they get stuff, or even just internet searches. This gives us, like I said, that bumper up. It will take some growing pains, it will, and that was the one thing, I took away from Port Clinton is, I'm sitting in a room with 30 teachers, all different grade levels, all different subject areas, and they're like, wow, okay. And so the first 15 minutes, here's blown back, and you're overwhelmed. And by the end of it, they were like, oh, when we talk planets, we could actually do blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, what do you think about this? So I don't necessarily know that the creativity we lost is just using it differently, and we're gonna have to practice it.
Okay. Is there like a system for Magic AI? Magic, it's cool. To make sure, we know like with standardized testing that bias can creep in. We know with certain types, whether it's, so like, is there a way that that this checks itself to make sure as it's getting fed in, and I don't claim to know exactly how all this, but it's, if it's getting fed in all this information from all these places, that it's not skewing in a way that's, whether it's politically, racially,
Yes.
gender, like there's a bias or some sort of.
It already is if you're using Google, everything is.
Fair enough,
biased online.
but since we're
Yeah.
since we're buying this
Right.
particular product.
So the easy answer is yes.
Yeah.
But they will also say with a little asterisk caveat that it's not perfect because it's ever expanding. So that redial with that RAG system, that's what they come back to like clean up the large data pieces and add context and add the things. That's their fallback. But they will also say it's not perfect because
Right.
it's ever expanding. So.
I think it's, and I may not be reading it, I think it's interesting or a little unusual that like this contract does not say what it is. Like, so I read the contract, I have no idea what their service is. Like, they're looking at the other contracts we have. It's like, this is for security awareness training and Fisher training. This is for behavioral consulting services in the district. Their contract just says for our services based on the number of students. I don't think it ever, like, so I didn't know what it was coming in, so I apologize for all the questions. It's a little unusual.
It's a really simple contract. Like, it's like a shockingly simple contract.
Maybe it was written by AI.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Is it inevitable that we're gonna be incorporating some kind of AI platform? Obviously we're like getting out ahead of it a little bit, maybe embracing it with this, but is this like inevitable?
So people are using it already. So there's ones out there, you don't have to log in, you just go to the internet and go check ChatGPT and put stuff in. So this would be located, kids use it through Clever, they log in through Clever and it's there. So it puts those parameters on it. So if we don't go with the platform, they can still access AI until we ask the guys to cut it off, and then the IT guys can block sites. But I think we also should be teaching kids how to use it. So.
To that end, is there any, sorry, like to be on a rabbit hole in this, but like, so in the business world, like if you're in the Microsoft platform, right? And I know that's a fair, I remember as a kid, like it was always like Mac was being pushed in educational settings, right? But in the real world, it was like PCs, right? Okay, so you could teach a kid how to use a Mac, but you weren't necessarily preparing them for like, computer literacy in the real world. To the extent Microsoft is kind of the Kleenex, right, of platforms in the business world. I know we're starting to learn now in the business world how to use Copilot and Microsoft's AI tools. Is there any like push in the workforce readiness vein to like is there like a Microsoft Junior platform or something like that that's getting kids ready for using tools that they'll see in the business world versus something that they may not see again when they get out of school? I don't know if my question makes sense, but.
It does, and I think so because it's all new. Not that I'm aware of yet, so, Google has their, was it Genie? I can't think of it off the top of my head. but, there's that one, but again, it's wide open. So, yeah, I'm not aware of one yet. Other platforms out there are Brisk. Josh rattled them all off the other day super fast, so.
Well, maybe just like with our eye to that long term, and I know we're not committing ourselves forever to this platform,
And this
it's
would be,
something.
yeah, and the state could say, in the next biennium budget, whatever, right?
Right.
Or in the next legislative action, whatever. So, this is, for a year. So,
But to the point, like Beth made about inevitability, I mean, it's like, I think the expectation in the workforce, at least a lot of workforces is like, why wouldn't you? You
Well,
know?
and kids are using it already, I mean, we hear, okay, I'm sure, but, and it sounds like teachers are using it already, so to try to give some guidance, like,
Thank you for all the discussion
Yeah,
on this.
thanks. Thanks, Julie. Did you have anything more, Julie? No. Okay. Amy, I just wanted to let you know, we love that you're here, but if you didn't wanna stay for the whole board meeting, you sure don't have to.
I will stay.
But I just wanted
Supposed to go outside and enjoy the weather.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an out in case you had something else you wanted to do, but we love that you're here.
Good. All right, so we are 11 months through, and in 1 week we'll be in FY '26, so it's kind of crazy. But as far as all the revenues go, we're sitting at about 103% right now. I imagine by the end of this month, after we close the fiscal year, it'll be right around 103.5, 104%, so we're pretty accurate. Expenditures, all funds 84%, and general funds 81, I imagine. For both, after we get everything paid and close out all these other POs that we maybe didn't use, low 90s. So, you know, we're definitely under on expenditures, so that's a good thing. We had $9,800 in donations for a few different scholarships, a Woodlands field trip, and boys tennis. I got a whole packet of purpose statement and budgets last week, so I'm working through those. I'm hoping to continue to collect those. I would love to have them before before school starts, so we can get all those put in. So there's a list of those. D is, it allows me in the next 7 days, any advances or transfers that need to happen. I can tell you, the first two I can think of, like we do every year, food service and athletics. There will be small grant amounts, so there will be 5 or 6 grants that I have to transfer zero out before the end of the fiscal year. So anything I do in that category, I'll report to you at the July 7th board meeting. Erie County Community Foundation grant, that's their agreement. There was a $6,000 grant for that summer intern, so that's their grant agreement. And then F is accepting those, and there's a project lead the way there as well for $10,000. So that's F. G is FY25 final appropriations. I don't expect there to be a ton of modifications to this. If there are, again, I'll report that out. But these are for our final appropriations for 25. And then H is the temporary. I think last year I did 25% of 24's appropriations, so I tried to get a little ahead of the game. The only thing we don't have right now, we don't have any of our federal funds allocated to us yet. Title I, I take that back. We did just get Title I last Friday. We are still waiting on all the other federal funds, the amounts to be allocated to us. So they're not on the 26. If we get them before the end of the fiscal year, I'll add them and I'll report that out to you in July.
Is that statewide?
I believe so, yeah. We're actually waiting on, typically, it's a terrible process. Normally they get it to us in June, but it's like June 15th, and then you have like 2 weeks to get it all settled so you can do the appropriations and everything. This year, they're just like, nobody's got them. They gave us, and even the Title I they said is placeholder amount, so I don't know exactly what that means.
No word from Department of Ed about it at all?
No, Julie, you sent in, didn't you say you sent in, or when you're at your meeting, somebody sent it in? And
Yeah, so, I had a working lunch today with Perkins and Bellevue, and everybody's frustrated, so, the system's not even taking the cents, like after you enter a dollar amount, you have to put cents, and it's very specific. And then the system's not even taking the cents, so, Ken sent out a help desk ticket and a reply message from who you're supposed to email. Her away message is like, here are all the known issues. Like, I'm not answering emails, I'll get to it when I can, but if you have one of these issues, and I had to like scroll, and I just started laughing, but there's a work session in Toledo on Wednesday, and I'm gonna go, like, it's just,
Yeah,
it's nuts.
it was like the 17th, I'm like, man, this is really late,
Wow.
like normally we have it by now, and now it's the 23rd and we still don't have
So
it.
what are the impacts if, I mean, this is for the upcoming year?
It is for the
We just have to
upcoming year.
amend whenever we find out what it is?
Yeah, probably. We'll, as soon as we get them, we'll put them in, we'll amend the appropriations so we can spend them.
And this is significant funds, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it would be. I mean, as of right now, the Title I, I think they have a placeholder in there of like 207,000.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, I
What's the
just.
total amount of federal funds that we have?
It's not as impactful to as
No,
some
it's not,
districts, but.
yeah, collectively, it's under $500,000 because
Yeah.
the IDEA, you got Title I, Title II and IV, 2A and 4, they're telling us they're gonna give us half of this past year's allocation as a placeholder. We don't know if we're getting the rest, so that's awesome to make plans with.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
I want, 500,000, I can look it up, but
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's right around that.
Yeah, early
Right around
childhood.
that area, yeah. So I'll update you guys as soon as we know anything about that. Item I, SERS pickup, change for administrators. Last year it was picked up at 3%, this year it's 5%. So those are the two resolutions we send off to SERS, STRS to get that changed. Item J is our insurance renewal. It's up about $5,000 from last year. I inquired about it. We didn't have any claims or anything. They said rates are up nationwide, just in general with claims. So we get to pay for others' claims. K is the scholarship awards. So that's just a list of everyone who received scholarships through us. And L is the Huron Public Library budget. We pass that for the custodial for their funds. They pass through us, so we pass the budget for them. Wednesday, looking ahead to Wednesday, we have that meeting with the Erie County Budget Commission. I think, you know, from what we've tried to find out, it's very limited information on what the meeting is, but we will know more Wednesday, and I believe Stacy and Chris are planning to attend. So that's at 2 o'clock, so after that, we'll be able to let you know kind of what they're looking for. One thing they told me was what they believe the legislative changes are gonna be. They wanted to kind of discuss that with us. I'm sure they wanna talk about carryover balances and things like that. But the appointment that they made, they're meeting with school districts back to back. It's only a half hour, so I'm not saying you can't accomplish a lot in a half hour, but it's gonna be kind of like, you know, move, so. But after that, I will send out some details on that for you guys so you know what took place.
Exciting times.
Yeah, it's something new every week, so that's for sure. That's all I have unless you guys have any further questions.
Okay.
All right, so I'll start my report with items on the agenda. 7A is the school lunch fees for this coming school year. Each building had a 10-cent increase. Looking at our commodities and looking at our sales and other factors, it should have been a 14%, but we don't want to overburden families, so we're continuing to phase that in. The next is our NOECA membership. So NOECA provides us, oh, sorry.
Can I stop on that? Is there
Yeah.
a chance to like make people aware of that now and push our free and reduced lunch paperwork simultaneously?
Yeah, so when
that
they-
if someone gets news like, oh, you know, I'm not excited about this, kind of, you can be like, well, you might want to check and apply.
Right.
Right.
So when they complete the returning student process in final forms, there's the prompts for the free and reduced, and then really in August, we start hitting reminders hard about completing that paperwork. Because it does provide your student with free or reduced lunch costs. If you're free, you also get school fees waived and those types of things. So we try to make families aware of that. And then what we do during the school year is when we have a student with a balance, they get mom and dad, the student doesn't. Mom and dad get reminders, we still feed the kid. But in those reminders, we're also directing them to those forms, and at that point, we even provide them paper forms, because sometimes people say the technology is challenging. So yeah, we coach people along as we go, but, yeah, those prices, it's still, less expensive than going to McDonald's. But they're creeping up, sure, so, I remember my mom sending me $1 and a dime, and that got me a full lunch, but
I don't know, yeah.
that was a few years ago.
Do we ever push out information during the summer to families on final forms, or do we?
We do, yeah.
Would this be something that we could put in some kind of communication, just to have it be on people's radars during the summer instead of August, or when people are crazy getting school supplies and
Yeah.
doing things like that? Maybe just get it on their radars?
Yeah, so July 1, we're gonna push out reminders to parents to finish that returning student. So in that message, we'll add a note about school lunch and the free reduced application. And, you know, those thresholds are, I think they're more generous than what people maybe assume they are, especially if you're in a multi-household, multi-head household, so.
Is
so-
it okay to say that? Because
Yeah.
some people may not even look at it because they don't think they'll qualify.
Yeah,
Or they view it as a handout, and it's like, no, you pay taxes,
Yeah.
like, you either qualify or you don't, but you're paying for it one way or the other.
and clearly, like, we want kids being well-fed, it helps them focus on learning and growth and development, and that's why it's, both for breakfast and lunch. So when I'm waiting for the Woodlands kids to get off the bus in the morning, I'm always trying to sell that breakfast. Because if you start with a full belly, you're gonna be more focused on learning and not distracted, so. But yeah, we can add that to that returning student notice that goes out July 1. And then, so B is, NOECA, they're our, internet and cybersecurity provider, so this is just a continuation of that contract. And, SIMVIC contracts, this is, it supplements what NOECA provides us with regard to cybersecurity, and provides us, it's a required, the services are required through our, insurance provider as well. So 2 years ago, we did that cyber audit, and, one of the elements that was looked at was our cybersecurity and the contracts or services that we have. It was a gap, so this is continuing to fill that gap, as far as that goes. Magic School, AI, we've talked about. The next two are consulting services for special education or intervention services with relation to, student, who need social emotional or behavioral supports. Those are renewals, they're as needed services, so we just like to have them approved so that as we need them, we don't have to wait for the next month, we can get going. Our shared service for itinerant preschool with Margaretta, that's been going for multiple years now, so it's just a continuation of that. And then, the sports medicine, so our trainer, we have a new trainer Bill, moved on to a new opportunity. I cannot remember the name of the new trainer, I believe, it's a woman, so I just can't think of her name. But if, with the new contract and the new provider, well, the new service provider, same provider, Matthew worked to rework that contract. It removed some of the language that was targeted for certain sports and certain seasons, and it's really opened it up to all student athletes, in all seasons. And then he will be working with the trainer and head coaches on some sort of service request process. I'm envisioning a Google form of some sort, just, you know, who are you, what's your ailment, and what's your availability. So if it's like last period of the day, lunch period, or right before practice, that way students know the way to request support. It's something that my kids have, and I put the app, or it's a Google form, so I created an app on my phone, and so when the kids are sharing about like their leg hurts or something like this, I'll put it in, and by the next day, the trainer's able to serve them. So, Matthew's working on that, but I think this contract has advanced in service, continue to maintain reasonable cost, and is addressing like the whole program needs, not just targeted. Any questions on that one? Okay. Next is Ashland University, so they sent over this MOU, and I said, hey Julie, like, what are we doing with Ashland? She's like, I don't know, we're not really doing anything. So I emailed them, I said, hey, like, you sent this over, but why? And they said, well, we haven't worked with you in a while, but we'd like to have this in place, so if we do, you know, we know that we can, like, send a student for a field experience, or send a student for student teaching. So I said, great, we'll send it to the board, get it approved, and I'm hoping that that maybe, you know, reconnects us with Ashland for maybe a student field experience or student teaching experience. And then the other here, this ETLA is that Senate for support with compliance with Senate Bill 29. So we already talked about this, but they help with the legal background of vetting the different platforms that we're using. Takes a lot of burden off Julie, the tech department, the tech committee, and aligns it for us. So that's that. And then Garland, so this is to replace the roof at the bus garage of the back barn. So that's like the workshop where they you know, repair stuff, store stuff. It's currently a shingle roof, and we're going to replace it with a shingle roof. We did get a quote for the cost of metal, like sheet metal roofing, and it was just it was outrageous. Yeah. So this new roof will outlast us 25, 35 years, and it'll provide us good service. We're doing it now as opposed to having significant leakage and everything else. So that'll get done this summer, pending, you know, approval. Looking at certified personnel, 2 resignations. We have Darius Schaefer resigning as principal and all other contracts. I wish him well in his new adventure, new phase of life for his family, and so wish him the best. Deb Finney is also looking to resign from her first grade position and then ultimately retire by the end of August. With the STRS changes that accelerated her eligibility, and so again, we recognized her last month, but just wishing her well. The Summer Learning Institute, there's 3 more teachers who submitted proposals and are recommended for you know, compensation for providing those services. And then we have Deb Finney for the summer service, which will help Julie with curriculum projects. So the new school year starts already up and running. And then Sarah Klaber is going to be our new preschool teacher, is recommended to be our new preschool teacher. She's just graduating and ready to return to Huron. So she's an alumni, and we're excited to have her in that new role. And then we also have 2 teachers providing 3rd grade reading guaranteed tutoring, and then administering the summer reading test this summer, so they're listed. And then annually, the administrative salary adjustments to go into effect August 1st. For classified, we have an employee with dock days for sick leave eligible reasons that exceeded her sick leave balance. We have exempt salaries for the 25-26 school year. Brenda Downing is going to be an onboard instructor to mentor our up-and-coming onboard instructor. So an onboard instructor is the person that does the behind-the-wheel training of new bus drivers. They have to perform at least 12 hours of service, and they could do more. Typically 15 to 25 hours is done before you get sent for your test, because we want to make sure you can pass. So for us to have someone certified as an onboard instructor, they have to shadow a current onboard instructor and then be shadowed by that person doing trainings for new drivers. So she's going to help us. She's a driver in an OBI in the district surrounding us. And then procedurally, we have this approved for reemployment in the areas assigned by administration. So that's the list of all contracted employees and substitutes. And then we have approved the following for substitutes starting June 1 because they're starting to take driver's classes. They attended that driver experience day that the drivers in Chad held out at the bus garage on a Saturday. They had some good previous experience driving large vehicles, and you know, they have interest in helping with school bus driving, and so I thought that event went well. We got more interest than initially anticipated, so we ended up with I think 4 people that came and got behind the wheel and drove around the parking lot safely and learned a little bit more about bus driving. And we had 2 last month, and then here's 2 more. So from that came. And then effective July 1, we have, this is the list of subs that we had active this past school year and performed work. And so now we have them getting renewed, recommended for renewal for the new school year. And then supplemental contracts. So we have a few wrestling assistant coaches and cross country, basketball, cheerleading assistant, head girls basketball coach, obviously with Darius leading. We posted all these, but we posted that one, interviewed multiple candidates, and Matthew Smith is one of our high school math teachers. Last year was his first year with us. He was on the coaching staff last year as well, so he's advancing up to head coach. And already he's got the team, in the gym working out. I think they already did, or they're going soon to an overnight camp. If yeah,
Last week.
it was last week, right?
Last week, yeah.
Yep. So that's he was serving those responsibilities as the approved assistant coach, and now he'll advance to head. Some football coaches, and then more cheerleaders. So any questions on those items? Any of those? Okay. And then 2 things not on the agenda. One is that, thinking about the board strategic priorities, specifically provide high quality education and experiences. Julie, Matthew, and I, we had a few meetings now with certified union representation to talk about ways we can enrich student life and expand experiences outside the classroom for students. And so we're interested in finding ways to seek interest from staff that align with student interests, find ways that can offer enriching experiences that aren't duplicating experiences that are already happening, both internally and within the community. So for example, if someone said, I think we should start a chess club, I would say, well, I know the Huron Public Library has a chess club and they run it well and it's open to anyone in the community. So that would probably be a duplication of service. It would be a duplication of service. So we're really looking for ways that students and staff with interest, students with similar ones can connect. There's nothing on the agenda tonight, but I guess I just wanted to share that because I know that's something I've shared with the board, and I want to see if there's any questions or input as we continue to talk with the teachers union about it. Okay. And then the last, I just want to share a couple of highlights from past and upcoming events. June 7th was a Saturday. Our boys track earned their 3rd state title for the district. It's their 2nd consecutive one, and so using the Parent Square urgent feature, it was an opportunity to test it. We invited everyone in the district to come welcome them back at Huron Memorial Stadium, and there was a pretty good community turnout, so that was nice. They had all 3 trophies there. Well, they had the 2 that we'd already earned, and they brought in the 3rd. If you're really getting into the weeds of the state tournament, we did tie for the state championship, and so it was cute. They said, well, we only have 1, so we'll generate a second one and send them to the schools. And one of our coaches politely said, since we're like repeat winners, like, could we take it? And so they allowed us to, so that was nice. We did share it with the other team to take pictures before we got on the bus and left, but that was a fun celebration, and I know they're going to be part of the Riverfest parade, so they'll be recognized again like they were last year. June 11th, there was Huron State of the Community held at BGS Firelands, and it was facilitated by the Greater Sandusky Partnership. I served on the education panel along with the library and BGSU's Dean. But it was good to bring that back. That hasn't happened for a few years. I know the Huron Chamber of Commerce was the big organizer of that, and that has evolved into or folded into the GSP. So that was good to have that opportunity and recognize some of the other activities happening in the community with relation to businesses. June 12th, North Point hosted its first Compass of Excellence Award. So they invited every district superintendent to nominate up to 2 staff members who exemplified being an excellence in education. I sent out to all staff a peer nomination form, and because how am I gonna sit there and pick? We got too many great teachers. So I said, hey, if you saw your peer do something great this year, submit the nomination and we'll use that list to narrow down to the 2 selected. So the 2 that were recognized from here on is 6th grade science teacher Leah Lacrosse, and then Woodlands intervention specialist Allison Litz. So it was nice. It was a nice breakfast. They had a little program, and they got recognized. So many deserving, only 2 were allowed to be submitted. So I anticipate North Point continuing that as a new, recognition experience. That was great. Mike already talked about on June 25th, the county budget commission holding those meetings. June 30th, the Blue Ribbon Committee is presenting their final report at BGS Firelands 5:30. It's open to the public. As a reminder to the board and the community, in April, they've been doing multiple sessions. In April, their focus was on schools and education, and it was hosted at McCormick's Auditorium. So we strategically had all students off campus doing incentives or educational programming, and that way it was open to the community. And I think there were some good discussions. I anticipate some good findings from the Blue Ribbon Committee, and I think ultimately it's their recommendations or findings. We can digest them and decide, which ones work for Huron and which ones don't make sense for us. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity to hear their findings. And then the last, just coming up, we'll have a board meeting before it, but July 12th, Riverfest Parade. It's a Saturday morning. Hopefully it's a cooler, sunny day. Not today and not rainy like it was last year. But we have the little water bottles ready to distribute. PTO will be joining us to help hand out, PTO leadership will be joining us to help hand it out. So it'll be the board, administrators, and some PTO representatives. Unless there's questions, that's my report for this month.
Any questions?
I just thought I'd make a comment. I know we brought up the trainer contract a number of times last year, so it's good to see that the team worked through that, and thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thanks. When I read it last year, I was like, this was excellent. So it was good. I think last year was the first we approved, the board had approved it since 2017, so we got that back on track last year. And now we have one that I think is definitely more equitable for all the sports that, students participate in. So yeah.
We've had the pleasure of already interacting with her, and she was fantastic.
Good, yeah, I've heard good things, so.
I just want to thank James and Julie for showing up on, what was the date, June 7th, that quickly pulled together recognition and warm welcome home for the state champions. So we just appreciate you both making time to pull out of a Saturday evening to come share with the district. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we need a motion for approval of the consent agenda, items under 5 through 7.
So moved.
Second. Okay.
Mrs. Hartley,
Yes.
Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Dr. LaFay,
Yes.
Mr. Rager,
Yes.
Mrs. Mast.
Yes, thanks.
All right, 9A, these are policy, this is the first reading of policy, either to rescind, customize, or revise. These are all coming from a legislative change in that we are no longer allowed to suspend a student's driver's license for truancy. So I kind of chuckled when I first got this set from OSBA, because I was like, do we even do this? So I talked to Mr. Lamb, because he has students that drive, and he said that when we're at the point of truancy where we're referring to court, we used to be able to add that as like a request. He remembers adding that request twice. He couldn't remember if the court granted it. So needless to say, it simply means we won't be making that request or threat anymore of withdrawing their driver's license, which kind of makes sense. Like if you're not coming to school, now we're gonna remove the way you get to school, so. And then just as a reminder too, last month, May, the board approved the transportation services, including high school service at request. So August 1st, the request form will get pushed out through final forms in Parent Square, so they can be incorporated into the routing. So we have that going. But if there's any discussion about policy.
Okay.
And then the next, there's some literature at your desk about Chorus. And that's the Coalition of Ohio Rural and Appalachian Schools. They've been in existence for a few years. Last year, they came up to Erie County and made a presentation to Erie County superintendents about the benefits of membership with them. I know at least one in our county joined them. They found benefit this past school year with some specific legislative changes that were going to impact them related to the pipeline funding. And then this spring, Randy Gardner, one of their executives, came and presented about all the different work that Chorus has been doing with relation to the biennium budget and other legislative. And really his emphasis is that while we have other legislative advocates that we have, so OSBA, VASA, OASBO, they represent all public school entities, whereas this is kind of a niche for rural and Appalachian schools. So they're really looking at issues and items and impact for rural schools, which we have an alignment with. So it's really here for discussion tonight, and then if it's something that the board feels could benefit Huron with helping have our voice heard, or be part of the similar districts that we are, our voice is heard at the state level with legislative and other actions, then we can move forward in July with a recommendation. If we think, hey, great, sounds like a great group, but maybe not the right time or not the right group for Huron, I guess want to share it with the board for discussion.
You said one other school in our area has joined this?
Yeah, they joined last year, and they're going to continue the membership. It's a year-to-year membership.
Can you say who it is?
I can. It's the Sleepy Polar Bear. So, yeah, it's Margaret.
Do you know what this, because I saw this, but I wasn't sure of the relationship. So what is Sunday Creek Horizons?
Yeah, I don't know either.
Versus the Chorus, like a lobbying group or something that's operating Chorus, or?
Yeah, so I am not 100% sure. I think,
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So.
Do we consider ourselves, and I fully appreciate growing up in Huron Township that there is a tie to at least agricultural in our community, but would we consider ourselves a rural school district? We certainly aren't an Appalachian school district.
We're not an Appalachian school district.
But would we consider ourselves a rural school district? I mean, Margaretta, I think it's a more interesting discussion. Edison, maybe a more interesting discussion.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's accurate to call ourselves a rural school district.
Right. That's a great question. So I did ask him that when we were talking on the phone. He said they really have 3 standards that they use to define a rural school district. And one would be that it has a high dependency on the tax base of residents. So there isn't a large industry or commercial tax base that school district draws from. The other would be that the school is seen as one of the centerpieces of the community. They do more than just educate students, they service the community, like it's an identity of the community. And I think that's probably true for us. And then the third is that there's other factors. One example would be limited transportation, right? So if you're in a community that has limited transportation, that is a characteristic of a rural school. So, we can frame it to say we are, we can frame it to say we're not. So it is a fair question, because especially Huron city schools, I would think that's a charter from like the late 1800s that probably drove that city title, but we are a city school as opposed to a town, local or, yeah, exempt village.
I could see if we were a school that drew from, more townships and more, a wider radius, that we could call ourselves a rural school. You know, like the hospital can call itself a rural hospital because we draw from some very rural areas.
Yeah.
But we just draw from Huron. I mean, we have some open enrollment students. So as I look at this, it looks like they're a consulting group this Sunday, Creek Horizon.
Yeah, it's probably lobbying.
So they're, right, and it looks like they're basically wanting to advocate for Appalachian children and education and things like that. I don't know.
So I think sometimes, so there's some federal designations that this whole region has, but we are designated rural, this area, so like with HUD and with some other things. And then I think if you think about like kind of broad categories of, if we say schools, if you think of urban districts, suburban districts, and then everybody else, where even though it's like we're technically a city by state statute, we're a small town compared to some others, like we're definitely not urban and not suburban in terms of a suburban is literally around an urban core. I think the resources that school districts in those areas are completely different from what. So I think of the things like, you know, identity, but really like transportation, where you face some different challenges, and that can become a big part of the legislation. But access, right? Internet access can be challenging. I mean, we had trouble communicating today, right? We don't even have really great Wi-Fi here. The town doesn't have great Wi-Fi. So there can be different sets of challenges that because we're not in a large urban or suburban infrastructure, that these are maybe some of the challenges that
I guess,
face.
right, and is it worth $5,000 to join this? Is it?
Can they get us free Wi-Fi in the town? That would be worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think they would
I
maybe
know.
guarantee that, but yeah.
No.
So, and I agree with, like, I recognize with Jody, like, $5,000, it's a good amount of money. Typically we see like, no, the electric contract is based on an ADM, so when they just said, no, it's 5,000 flat, to some degree it makes sense because they're dealing with a bunch of small districts, so let's just cut to the chase and say, here's what we need to do the work that we do. In the presentation that he did, as far as providing updates and stuff, Randy Gardner and his team seems engaged at the legislative level, so he has the ear of legislators.
Well, sure, Randy Gardner's the king of engagement.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So, to me, like last year, I was like, oh, that sounds like a good
Yeah.
group, but not for Huron. Seeing the impact that they have, and it's mostly because of the people behind it, gave me pause to say, maybe this is something that would be beneficial for us, so.
Did Margaretta give you any indication that they've benefited from their membership? But theirs was more, you said pipeline.
It was pipeline,
related.
yeah, there was a pending legislation to change the funding, or the direction of those tax
Right,
dollars,
right.
and they were able to get the correct legislators' ears to say that doesn't make sense, you need to undo that, so it was done pretty quickly. When Randy shared the story, it's like, it would've been done, it's the right thing, so it would've been done eventually, but we got it done quicker. And I'm like, that's a nice way to say it, you know, so.
I mean, is there anything you can think of that we're dealing with or we've dealt with that you could say, oh, this would have been a great resource? You know, I guess I wonder if.
Yeah, I would say as Mike and I we all continue to monitor legislative changes and biennium budget changes with funding. It would be important to have our voice heard. We are kind of unique in that, you know, we have a lot of homes that are second homes or renter properties. And so when people want to just have a blanket of, you know, let's just lower everyone's property tax across the board, I disagree with that. We need to have some targeted relief, right? So people on fixed incomes, elderly, owner-occupied homes, I think there should be some relief there. But if you have a residential property that you're ultimately using for commercial gain, I'm not so sure total relief is appropriate. So would they help represent that? Probably. And,
Does the OSBA have subcommittees or these different organizations who we're already members of, do they have subcommittees that focus on, or is it just like one size fits all?
there's, I can speak for BASA, because that's the group I'm part of. They have subcommittees, but it's really about like, teacher retention,
Engage, like, or recruitment and
Yeah,
retention
recruitment,
and,
yeah. STRS engagement, you know, they do have a legislative group, and again, that legislative body is representing all public schools, right? So their conversation is a little different than what this group might be, because it's like, you know, let's downplay the charters and the voucher system, let's promote public schools. Whereas here, it's more lasered in on these small districts that serve rural communities. So I think for me, that's the niche that they have. But again, is it a $5,000 investment for us is the question, so.
And are you, I mean, this, you're just looking for discussion, we don't have to take action on this evening?
No, I don't expect any action today, I
Okay.
need more discussion.
Okay,
Yep.
great, great, thanks.
Any other discussion?
I would say like, it's like a marketing issue almost, you know?
A little bit.
Like their name doesn't exactly match the mission.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, I'm guessing they started as the Appalachian, and then they were like, well, that serves a nice corridor from, Marietta to Cincinnati, but, we need to expand, so let's add the pool, yeah. All right, the next is, so I think, after discussion, I'm probably gonna table it for another year, continue to monitor their progress through legislative stuff and move on. So, I might bring it back a year from now. The next one is the Greater Sandusky Partnership. So, again, the Huron Chamber, sort of got folded into Greater Sandusky Partnership, as well as others. To me, with the work we do with the BAC, I see alignment there, Blue Ribbon Committee, as far as regionalism. So the Greater Sandusky Partnership is gonna regionalize some of those, smaller, Chamber of Commerce, events, activities. They continue to wanna maintain those individual personalities of the communities. So like, they hosted the Huron, State of the Community. I think, what'd you say, they had 7 events in 8 days?
Yeah, they were not.
Cause I think that's when they were trying to roll off a bunch down, you know, in the different, area that they serve. So as we, you know, and then also Greater Sandusky Partnership, they help a lot with the work of the BAC. So when we're talking about organizing events with employers and connecting students, they're the ones behind the scenes, making those connections, setting up the events, really helping the BAC do the work that it does. So we have a direct benefit from the work that the Greater Sandusky Partnership provides. So I talked with them about membership. They said membership for a business our size has $1,000 annual membership to it. And so I wanted to talk with the board about that. Do we think that that's a entity that the district wants to join, or do we think that, no, I guess is the question. There's no recommendation tonight, it would be brought to you July if the discussion leads that way.
I'm just wondering if anything they're doing now, we benefit differently if we pay them $1,000.
I think it would be, in some ways, sort of like, are we just seeking resources from them without full membership? And so, it's, you know, being a full, equitable participant in the organization, sort of makes sense to me as far as, you know, we don't just take, it's mutually beneficial. So I think we would gain additional networking opportunities. Julie and I went to one, well, we went to a few, but the one was with introduction of the new dean. We have, through the Erie County Community Foundation, we have the intern. GSP is hosting a 6-series internship summer experience. So for 6 days, 6 Fridays throughout the summer, she's gonna go with, I think, 40 other interns and network and meet with them. And
Are we paying for that?
We are not, because we have the Erie County Community Foundation.
No, but there was a cost for that, like $150 per participant to do that separate thing,
Yeah, correct.
so we didn't
And
have to pay.
we don't, because our intern is through the Community Foundation. So they, I think GSB either billed back Community Foundation or they just waived it for their, I think they have 5 or 6 interns. They just waived it for those participants.
Are other school districts, within their like service area, Sandusky, well, Sleepy Bears, whatever, are they members as well?
I believe so, yes. So I can double check on that though.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah, I would love to see if they did like a government or a nonprofit rate
Can't we
versus
scan
a
them on the business
business.
directory and see who's members?
You know, cause some of the things I see that are the benefits, definitely see a huge benefit for businesses.
Yeah.
And like you said, we need to be so intertwined with the work through North Point, BAC, and just workforce efforts,
Yeah.
internships,
Correct.
through others, that we can still take part in those things without, but.
So again, really a non-action item, just
Discussion.
a discussion item. Okay.
All right, so I'll do a little more research and share it and then decide on that one.
Evo, Perkins, St. Mary, Sandusky,
Who'd you say?
search school.
Who'd you say?
I just searched schools, but it was Perkins, St. Mary, Sandusky, Evo, Townsend. Maybe if you do other shifts.
Charter, private, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Do we have any new business? I did read something, I don't know, Julie, if you caught wind of this. Did Roger Blevins get some kind of recognition for Ohio biology teacher, something?
Yes.
Is the board going to do any kind of recognition of that, or what do we do?
Yeah, so last Friday, they came and awarded him, the actual like award. And then I think he's traveling now, or he was, I can't remember.
He he's got lots of things going on.
Well, he wasn't Sunday, cause I saw him on his jet ski.
No, he
Small town,
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
rural town.
I'm sorry?
So she was supposed to come earlier in the summer, the award physically didn't arrive on time, so
Okay.
we rescheduled between his first trip and his second trip, so he
Okay.
does have a plan, but I think it'd be great if, we could clap for him.
Yeah.
Just the timing of when so the process was, like, he actually was asked to apply last year and didn't get it, and then they asked him to resubmit this year. It's quite the process, so he is the state biology teacher of the year, for this national organization, so he'll represent Ohio out in Missouri, November-ish, so, yeah, it's pretty big deal.
Oh, was that the one where they came in and like observed him in the classroom and
He
filmed or
has a
something in
video.
there too?
He had his own
Yeah,
video.
okay.
Did our social media like put that out there?
I gave him the information, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, okay, I just wanna make sure I didn't miss it,
Yeah.
cause that'd be great, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so if we could recognize him, at a board meeting, I don't know if we wanna do it closer to when school's in session, or, I don't know when we'd get the biggest audience.
Right.
But, I think that'd be, and same with the boys track team, you know, state track team, that'd be
Summers
great.
are tough.
Yeah,
I mean, I
summers
find
are
that
really
we
hard.
look
Yeah.
more to when everybody's
Yeah.
coming
Yeah,
back to
like in
school
August
and
or-
recognize those fun
Yeah.
summer accomplishments.
But before kids leave for college, so.
Oh, yeah, for the seniors.
Would there be any way to do it when you guys do your like kickoff of the school year with like the teachers and all of that sort of thing, so that like he gets
Yeah.
recognized in front of everybody and
His
somehow.
peers.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if we can pop into that depending on when it is. we will.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm thinking like, so Roger's a relatively humble person, so like a float in the parade, he probably wouldn't want. But, we have the ice cream social Monday the 18th, and then there's a board meeting that night. And then 19th is a Tuesday, 20th is the staff convocation day, so we'll definitely recognize him then. So but sometimes board members are there, sometimes they're not. So if we wanna do it in August 18th board meeting, cause you'll be in town then, cause we'll be ready. kicking
Yeah,
back.
just, I think it's good for the board to recognize things like that.
Yeah, and then for track, we could do that, in July 7th, cause then on the 18th, a lot of them will be gone already, or getting ready to go off to school, so.
Okay,
Yep.
that would be great.
Yeah. Got a lot of good stuff to celebrate.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. And then I believe we're going to enter into executive session to discuss, the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against an employee, official, or student, unless such individual requests a public hearing. The board will not hold an executive session for the discipline of one of its members, for conduct related to the performance of his, her official duties, or for his, her removal from the office. So, just need a motion for that, please.
Second.
Dr. LaFay,
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley,
Yes.
Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mr. Rager,
Yes.
Mrs. Mast.
Yes, thank you. Let's have everybody join us for executive session, and then we may excuse some administrators as needed then. Everybody's meeting next.